How are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? So today I'm on with Jen McCarty, and obviously most of you might know Jen and her face. So we're gonna have a bit of a chat about a few different subjects, really. So how you doing, Jen?
Yeah, I'm really good, Richard. And yeah, I just wanted to sort of merge our communities because we're both, kind of quite outspoken about what's been going on recently. And sometimes it's really powerful when our communities come together, because I'm sure there are people in my community that will benefit deeply from your medicine. And I hope that there would be people from your community that would benefit from my medicine. So yeah, it's really great. And I'm going to be uploading this on all my platforms, and my big group, the event is happening. And yeah, really been looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, certainly. And to be honest, that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about in a little while.
Oh yeah,
People are jumping on now, so people are jumping on the live.
that's great. I'm going to share it, Richard. I'm just going to go onto your Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, sugar, hold on. And I'm just going to basically share it with my community so that they can join the live stream.
No problem at all. And then obviously you can tell us a little bit about the event is happening group. So I joined that a short while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's obviously a big group, so definitely it's something you've been working on for quite a while, I presume.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, I set up that group on International Women's Day in 2018, and it was basically based on a vision. It was based on a vision that I had about the Solar Flash event. Basically, I was just walking around my house, walking around in nature one day, and all of a sudden I heard this big, massive. I'm just going to write live now. I had this massive sort of vision from my spiritual team. Well, no, it wasn't a vision. They were like talking to me. They said they were like, there's going to be an event. And I didn't know anything about the event. I literally had no clue about any event or anything like that. And I was like, what is an event? And then they basically said to me that all this light is going to come into planet Earth, and everyone is going to literally, it's not going to be like light, it's going to be like God's presence is going to come into the earth, and it's going to blast everyone's third eye open, and everyone's going to go into sort of like a death experience, like a near death experience, where they see the light, and their life flashes before them, and they get to become one with their soul consciousness. So I was shown that this event is going to happen, and it's going to affect everyone, no matter where you are on your spiritual path, whether you're a banker, whether you're a 3D person, like everyone is going to meet the energy of the event. And they called it the event. And I'd never read anything about it. I'd never heard anything about it. It just literally just came from my higher self. And then I went home that day and I made a video about it. And then as I said the word event, this light came in, and it started like all flickering and dancing on my face, and it was like the energies were like talking to me, and that was very validating. And anyway, I sort of didn't really talk about it, I put it on the back burner. And about 2 months later, this friend of mine, she wrote on Facebook, has anyone heard about the event? And I was like, oh my god, I've heard about the event. And then she sent me all this stuff about it, and all these other people had like been receiving the same information about the same event. And I was like, oh my god, like it was like a real rabbit hole to go down, And so I went down this rabbit hole, and then I found out that actually it's spoken about in Hinduism. It's called the Samvartika. And a lot of the Hindu scripture talks about the Samvartika, which is like when like the sun sends out a pulse of energy, you know what I mean? It's going to like shift the planet. But this is all connected to the end of the Mayan calendar, like all these long count calendars, the Egyptian long count calendar, the Hindu long count calendar, the Mayan, the Aztec. All of these calendars ended in the period between 2012 and now. Why did they end now? Because they're talking about this pulse. They're talking about the end of time as we know it. Because what happens is when the event comes, everyone's consciousness recalibrates back to the 0 point field. At the moment, our consciousness is sort of like linear. Do you know what I mean? It's like past, present, and future is perceived in a linear way, but we're going quantum. And so with the event, we're going to be able to access our quantum consciousness, which means that we can go back into the past, we can go into the future. We understand about timelines, and that timelines are operating like concurrently. Like time really works on a vertical level. It's not on a horizontal level, it's a vertical level. So right now we're in the present moment. That's the 0 point field. Within the 0 point field, all timelines are operating concurrently. So that's all past timelines and all future timelines. They all meet and merge in the 0 point field. So as we experience the event, we are going to experience our consciousness returning home to the 0 point. And basically that means that we're going to awaken to our multidimensionality, awaken to our spiritual powers, awaken to who we truly are on a spiritual level. So yeah, it's a
Well, to be honest,
big subject.
What you just said there, to say we haven't really we had a few chats over Messenger and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've been doing for many years, going back to probably about 2015, I started doing ancient cultures.
Oh yeah.
History. So a lot of the ancient cultures, like you say, so you know, from across India, across Mexico, and stuff like that, they have a very similar timeline, which of course most people was told a long time ago that 2012 was meant to be the end of the world, well, it's the end of a cycle, end of the calendar.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
again, now we know that the mainstream curriculum deliberately made that happen then, and it was a bit of a lie. It's basically more closer to 2021 than it was 2012.
That's right.
They tried to make that happen. So when people started thinking something big's going to happen and it didn't, then you stopped believing in it, stopped looking at it. So that's kind of what I believe happened with that the Mayan calendar. But then if you start looking at the Hopis, the Hopi tribes and whatnot, their prophecies are absolutely amazing and powerful. But you know, you got to kind of look at all these different cultures, and then we get the big picture. Especially from looking at the Indian Sanskrits, which I love doing, and you look at the Yuga cycles. We are at the end of a Yuga cycle.
Yuga cycles, exactly.
And
we're on
exactly
the same page. That's really good that we've done very, very similar levels of research. So yeah, we're singing from the same hymn sheet. And so, you know, as you know, we're doing this interview, this sort of chat to introduce each other to our community. So I'd just like to ask you, like Richard, like, you know, you have a lot of really amazing information. Like tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you get to this place?
Well, if I look at it from a spiritual point of view, now I'd be saying that the obviously I've come back in this time, like most of us have, to try and bring this major change or try and help stop what's going to happen to this earth if people like us don't stand up and do something.
Yeah.
But by rights, my journey really started in my late teens. I'm 36 now, so my late teens is where I was already being called a conspiracy theorist from certain friends. And I was really getting deep into subjects, so I started to enjoy it back then. And I used to go to meetings with one or two friends, you know, dressed in suits, called Truth Juice and stuff like that. And I'd always be stood at the background, you know, not really feeling too comfortable, but listening to all the different subjects going on. And it went on from there up until the point of where I started force feeding my family and people information. People start turning against you and you really are alone. Even to the point of where mental health get involved because people start getting concerned about you. And I was absolutely fine. But what I'm talking about to people, of course, is crazy to them and their level, you know, they're switched off. So I kind of went back into the, you know, just cracking on with life, cared about work. And I was always doing my research here and there. But then I suppose really in end of 2018, I started to really jump back into it. The whole of 2019, I stayed in, didn't go out doing nothing at all throughout that year. Study. And then, of course, 2020 came along and it was almost like now's the time to jump forward and start doing a little bit towards what I could see was happening to the world at that point about all these things that we were going to be facing. And of course, at the same time, I had controversial subjects, which was basically doing all subjects, letting people come onto that and do talks and topics, which eventually was shut down. Then obviously the police came around and raided my house, took all my clothes and equipment, started putting me under public orders, so I weren't able to do video making and all these sort of things. And, you know, so during 2020, I started going out protesting as well. That's where things really took off because you stand there in front of the police officers and you're getting whacked and, you know, you're standing with your people trying to get these messages out that we're not standing for tyranny. We will stand to the death against it. And that's where I think really all of us started to find each other and we're not alone in this time. And that really stood out in 2020. So 2020 was not only a bit of a curse on the earth, it was also a blessing.
Yeah.
And we can now say that we're not alone. There's millions of us worldwide that are all fully aware of what's happening to the planet and that we have no we can't sit back and watch, and that's why we're all here standing forward.
Yeah.
So what about yourself then, Jen? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. And
well, I just want to respond to that. I just wanted to say, I will share a bit about myself, but I just wanted to say, like, I felt such deep compassion when you were speaking, because as a divine masculine, it's like you've signed up for stuff that I haven't signed up for, and it's that kind of like really meeting that war energy. Do you know what I mean? That frontline war energy. And I just want to extend just like gratitude and prayer to you and all the divine masculines that are brave enough to stand up. Do you know what I mean? And take assaults if necessary, or whatever it is. There's no justification for it, but it's something that I just couldn't even comprehend. And it's like, I just think it needs to be honored. It needs to be acknowledged that as masculine and divine masculines and divine feminines, we're playing out different roles. Do you know what I mean? And actually, you know, a lot of the men, it's like you're putting yourself on the front line in a very, very real way. And I pray that all this war energy stops, because I see you as my angelic brother. Like, I see you, I see your sacredness, I see your soul, I see what a treasure you are to our creator, to God. Do you know what I mean? And the fact that you have to put yourself in these situations to be abused and to be physically hurt, to be, you know, all this terrible thing that has, you know, been sort of like inflicted on you in some way, it just feels, it's very, very harsh. And I think that kind of goes across the board for the divine masculine. Like, you've signed up for more kind of like physical trauma, I think, in this lifetime. I mean, I know that women get abused and stuff like that, but we in our subconscious mind, we don't really carry the same memories of being on the front line in wars. And what men have had to experience on the front line in wars, we haven't had to experience that. Do you know what I mean? And and I just want to just send out that prayer of, like, I pray for your protection, and I pray that this world can cherish you.
I appreciate that, Jen. I'll tell you something now. The general masses, when it comes to what you've just said, and I'm sure most people that would watch this would agree, I know for a fact that all the awakened men, they are warriors at heart and spirit, whether they've been fighters in their life. I spent most of my life being a fighter, so it's kind of my part, and it was just something I was happily doing. But don't get me wrong, when you've got loads of these, I call them New Day Nazis, but, you know, call these policy enforcers, they're meant to be police officers and whatnot, swinging bats at innocent people that are standing up for their rights.
Yeah.
Believe me, that's where it fires me into a point where I'm prepared to die. But then I'm standing next to men that I've never met before that have the same thing. But when it comes to the women in this awakening have been the backbone. And
I agree. Goosebumps.
They carry their intuition. And I think really the masses are the women that are actually really keeping this afloat at the moment. So we all know that we are working together.
Yeah.
And, you know, if it's battle zones, then yeah, of course, the men need to step up for that. When it comes to talking more of the spiritual things and these other stuff, then of course it's the masses of the women that are doing that. So it all works together, and without each other, of course, stand alone, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. My dogs are just going for it. Oh, doggy, come on now. Can you hear him? Yeah, no, and we are working together. And, you know, I mean, what I've been talking about in my videos in the last week is that, you know, we're in a spiritual battle, we're in a spiritual war, and that can be sort of like delegated down to the old world and the new world. The old world is the establishment and traditions, and it's established. It doesn't want to go anywhere. It's getting all the money, it's getting all the status, it's getting everything, and so it's locked into position. And so the new earth energies, oh sorry, that's my son ringing me. The new earth energies are coming in, and now there's going to have to be a confrontation at some point. There has to be a confrontation between the new energy and the old energy, and that's what I'm sort of like being pushed to really, really call out certain things. And I did that meme. It's like every community needs an angelic troublemaker. We do. That's what we need now, because we need to call out all of these inconsistencies and all this trauma and all the abuse that so many people in our society are inflicting on other vulnerable people. And I've been talking a lot about calling out the fake elders, the fake shamans, the fake gurus, the fake coaches, the ones that are just here to they're here to commercialize spirituality. They don't care about your heart. They don't give a shit about you. They care about whether you give them £350 to sign up for their ceremony. Now, these people are getting away with absolute living murder in all the spiritual hubs, and they're causing abuse, they're causing trauma, they're causing people to go into psychosis on these plant medicine ceremonies because they're not shamans, they're not genuine shamans.
Not guiding it properly.
They're not holding it properly. And this is dangerous. This is like our brothers and sisters are going into psychosis because of these fake shamans, but no one's got the balls to say anything. And so the old world stays locked in place. But we're carrying the codes of the new earth. And so we are going to have conversations. We are going to have eruptions with this energy in order for it to go. It has to leave the planet now. But it's not going to go, oh, yeah, guys, yeah. I've really thought about what you said. Yeah, I'm just going to like pack my bags and leave. It's not going to leave. These fake shamans, they're making a fortune. They're probably making 100K a month. They've got all the status in the world. Yeah. They're not gonna change their roles. So we have to do that. This is where the rubber meets the road in this spiritual battle. It's between the patriarchal energy, the old establishment left brain patriarchal energy against the divine feminine right brain creativity intuition. That's what's going on. And the left brain, Archie, come here, please. The left brain has basically has dominated. And the divine feminine has been suppressed. So you go to these ceremonies and most of them are divine feminines. This is in men and women. Men have the divine feminine in them, and that is the part of their sensitive consciousness that clocks everything. It clocks whether you're being treated with honor, whether you're being treated with love, whether you're being treated with respect. So we have these situations where these ceremonies are taking place. The shaman is not in their heart. The shaman is treating everyone like an absolute. The fake shaman is treating everyone like shit, and everyone's thinking it's their problem. Oh, I'm so sensitive. Oh, I shouldn't be so sensitive. I should be okay with being abused. Everyone else is being abused and they don't mind. I'm the one. I'm so sensitive, and everyone gaslights themselves, and then they keep these fake shamans in their position. Enough now, guys. Like, we all really have to be having this conversation. Like, don't gaslight yourself. Stop gaslighting yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'll say with that, what I used to read, don't get me wrong, before 2021, at the very start of 2021, was one of my friends who I classed as a bit of a shaman, even though we call him a bit of a reckless shaman. One of my best friends, basically, put it this way. Before that, I was fully aware of spirituality, but it's the one thing I hadn't really studied or looked into. But for about 12 years before that, I've always done religion studies, because when I was younger and I understood, well, if I was going to pick a religion, which one? Because there's like 4,000 religions. There's 2,000 gods. Which one would you go to? And that's when I started young, quite getting involved with all that. When I really started to look at spirituality, and I thought, okay, then it's not a religion. It's a whole different thing. It's about understanding what we are as a being, the higher self, the better self, this, that, and the other. And that's when I started to really change myself. So now I can be with someone. I wouldn't judge them like how I used to. I'd be able to look at someone and read them through their voice, their tones, their character, how their body language is. And that all stopped. I'll let that be as it is, because that's their ego part of the body and part of the brain, if you want. Now I actually really do feel energy, and I'll look at someone, I could be with them within a few seconds. I'll know whether I need to be around them or not, and that's a whole different thing. I think that's something where, when people are dealing with maybe some of these ceremonies and people that might be doing the shamanic teachings and whatnot, again, just do the same thing. See how you feel, how your energy feels around them, and if it doesn't feel right, remove yourself from that sort of environment. Because I could imagine there's a lot out, and I do see people that have probably took advantage of this time we're all living in. And I know people are going to make money, and people want to make a business, and that's fair. Everyone's got to do it. But on the same time, it's like you say, it's people are being taken advantage of here and there. So everyone's just got to be a bit more careful of what they're doing. At the moment, my brother's down in Brighton, and he's with an amazing group, and he's done a few ceremonies down there. But he went, unlike myself, you know, I did a few little altered states of consciousness throughout the last couple of years, but I haven't gone too deep into it all. Because I think, you know, I'm still trying to find myself with it, and I've been through, you know, a bit of a bumpy road. But he's really changed his way compared to what he was like before he jumped on that stuff. You know, he really has, and it's amazing, and just an absolute amazing soul now. He's grown so much. And
Is that your blood brother?
He's actually my stepbrother from birth. So when I was 6 months old, basically, my dad, his mum died, and my dad split up with my mum. And then my mum and his dad were best friends, so they got together when we were babies.
Wow.
So it's like my real brother, but we're not.
Yeah, blood. Yeah, totally.
And you know, we can sit there and have a conversation now about hardly anything, you know, too deep, and he can cry very easily. And I was when my dad died, I was a bit older when my dad died. I was probably about 21. I held his hand when he died. I didn't cry. I was a very hardened man up until 2021.
Really?
I didn't cry at anything in the world. That's how bad I was. Fair enough, when I started making videos about things that happen to children in this world, that's something that would bring tears to my eyes, but no one would see it. And then I think through 2021, when I really started to open up, and I suppose, as you say, started to balance your brain out a little bit from the masculine and feminine, I let go of that hardened shell a little bit. And of course, I can sit there now and I can let tears come out from people and smile about it. But my brother, he's unreal, you know, he'll sit there and he can bring it out of me. As soon as I see him talking about something and he has the tears coming down, and it's like, he can just bring it out of me. So it's a beautiful thing, though. It really is, letting go of that hardened character I had to be all my life. You know, some people have to go through that depending on where you're born and where you live and what you're surrounded by in this world that it offers us. We have to become this character and this person, you know, and it's breaking away from it. It's the most beautiful feeling. So, you know, and that's why I'm really enjoying this journey now of mixing with people, and, you know, not so much I'm letting go of all the old friends. I just don't see them as much as I used to, because they're still part of the, let's just say, the system. They're still, you know, in that world, where I'm mixing now with people that are like us, and it is amazing. You can have a bad day, go and sit with people that are like us, spiritually aware and awake, and I tell you what, it's absorbed straight out of you, and it can be changed very quickly, can't it? So it's an amazing time we're living in.
Yeah, it's definitely an amazing time we're living in, and I have so much compassion for the divine masculine, you know, and I see that with my brother. My brother is very, very angelic consciousness, but he was born in inner city London at a time when all the gangs were like doing horrible things, and he became part of that. But it wasn't him, it was just the environment that he was in, and then he had to create this false persona. And really, he's very angelic, my brother, but he kind of like lost it. He lost his connection because of the environment, you know what I mean, that he was in. But yeah, no, it's been really, really hard for the divine masculine, and I, you know, I really appreciate the fact that you're saying that you feel much more able to cry now, because that is really the key. It's like you're only abandoning yourself emotionally if you don't allow yourself to show your emotions and to feel your emotions. You're throwing yourself under the bus. Do you know what I mean? And if you throw yourself under the bus, you're going to throw everyone under the bus. But if you can be there and hold space for yourself, you can hold space for everyone. Now you're fearless in front of anyone's emotions. You probably can hold space for anyone, even if they have a deep cathartic release, because you can be there for yourself. Yeah. Isn't it?
And I think there's the other thing that's happened over the last couple of years, which has really changed my life, and it works. So for anyone out there that, you might be aware of it, everyone in the world is aware of zodiac signs, birth signs, and all that. If 2 years ago someone said to me, you know, I'd be like, yeah, I'm a Gemini, 2nd of June, split bang in the middle of the year, and yes, I have two sides to me, like everybody else on the planet. But the thing is, now I look back at my old self, and I'm like, wow, I understand why my family, my friends would always say around me they're on eggshells. They don't know which one they're dealing with. I could be absolutely spot on and fine this minute, and one little thing they get immediate, and it's so quickly done. But now I actually realise how I was in my old ego state of mind, and it's probably very difficult to be around. Even though I was believed I had a good heart and that, I could imagine I was a bloody pain. So unpredictable is the word. But now I've started to really, when I start meeting people and start speaking to people, I'm looking at them, and within a few minutes I'll almost try and judge what star sign they had, their birth, you know, sign and whatnot. And also I'll ask that question because it does help, and it's amazing how right these things are. So from a cosmic point of view, you know, if someone tried to tell me that because of your birthday when you're born, even though we know the calendars aren't right compared to what they should have been, the 13-month year calendar, it really does make sense. And I'm happy to say that these things do sing and ring true with people when we start to look at these things. So, you know, I think it's
Well, you're feeling that you're having much deeper connection with astrology now.
100%, yeah, 100%.
My son's a Gemini. Yeah, I'm really connected to Geminis, and yeah, my twin flames are Gemini, and yeah, Geminis. I have a very, very strong connections with Geminis. Yeah, it's definitely a powerful time for us to be alive. So, how do you share your work, Richard? Do you how do you sort of, what do you do? Do you work?
Yeah, so I do basic kitchens and bathrooms.
Oh, okay.
That's what I've always done in my life. That's my trade. But
Oh,
again,
yeah.
at the back end of that, you know, I'll still do it just to make sure I've got jobs coming in and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I have a complete different idea and plan. I'm working on other things because I want this life to be different. You know, I'm heading down a different journey, so it will be a lot more involved with, you know, video making. So me and my friend Mike, we're going to be setting up a whole new channel from fresh, and it's going to go very esoteric and deep into sacred knowledge and forbidden knowledge and stuff like that. Doing all them sort of releases because I love doing that sort of stuff. But then that's more of, I suppose, of a hobby point of view. But in regards to work, I do carpentry as well. So my thing is, I want to carvings and start doing that sort of stuff. I've got a few plans in the woodwork, which will bring me away from what I've done for the last 20 years. In regards to how, you know, I used to use originally my old business page was through my original Facebook before I got removed. It's my fifth account. This is what I'm using at the moment.
Wow.
I've been moved, so I'd have, you know, the following would go quite far. Then all of a sudden I'd be at a police station serving documents, which, you know, the video gets shared thousands and thousands of times throughout the night.
Yeah.
Following wake up to no profile, and that happened quite a lot of the last couple of years. Whereas this one, fair enough. Through 2021, I'm sure most people would agree that they spent most of 2021 on 30-day bans through putting information out and sharing it. So a lot of people now are a bit more aware. We have to be a bit more clever with our terminology we use on these platforms. But all of mine got removed. Everything, the YouTubes, they all got destroyed and removed. And that's why I stopped bothering with that side so much. And that's why I took a step back this year because I had a bit of a family breakup at the start of the year, which has been dragging out. I'm in court next Friday for that, which could be a bit of a peaky one because the actual system, I've represented myself for years. And at the moment, they've got me by the balls, really. So I've got a bit of a countdown from now to Friday. So if I come home on Friday, that's where my life really gets to begin and start again. It'll be like a rebirth day for me, that will.
I'm going to pray for you, Richard.
No, thank you. I'll need it for that. I'd say, when you've got the CPS, for those who don't know, CPS is the Crown Prosecution Service. So they have got it in for me. They're gunning for me. A lot of court cases I've dealt with over the years when I represent myself, believe me, you know, I go in there as the living man and I make things a little bit difficult and I end up walking out. Not that I get away with doing things wrong. I just don't get fooled by the system. I don't allow that to happen to me. Whereas this time I'm actually up for a couple of serious things. ABH and breaking a court order, which holds up to 5 years imprisonment anyway. So there's other court orders against me still, which hold out till like May 2023. I've been under pressure. But when the CPS stands there in front of the judge and says that Richard's mostly known for making videos about politicians, police officers, and judges being connected to paedophile networks and things like that, it really does makes your heart, you know, go quite quickly. So I know I'm under pressure, but fingers crossed, the end of next week will be the end of it all and I can move forward. So
yeah, if I was you, I would just keep really sort of seeing that vision, really, you know, put it into your imagination, into your subconscious mind that is what's going to happen, that you're going to be walking free. Do you know what I mean? I really visualize it. I would, if I was you, Richard, and really going to pray for you, brother.
No, that's it. So don't get me wrong, I take responsibility for things I've done wrong, but it's a case of they are taking advantage of who I am, and they just want to make sure they can make an example. So, you know, I've just got to face it with whatever happens next week, which I've got friends helping, looking at the best way for it. But
So I just want to just give you a little tip. I follow an amazing teacher called Neville Goddard, and he talks about how in our imagination we can change our relationship. So if we have a relationship with a judge or with someone in authority that is not in a good place, we can change the dynamic of that relationship in our imagination. And he used this example of this woman that that came to him, and she said, "Oh, Neville, my boss, he treats me so badly, but I need this job." And Neville said, "I bet you when you walk home from work every night, you are cussing him, you are slagging him off to the high heavens." And she was like, "Yes, that's true, I do that." He said, "Change that. Change that. Have it now that he's saying to you that you're his best worker, that he loves having you in his team." And she did that, and their relationship completely changed, and she ended up getting a promotion. But it's such a good little tip for us to apply to very difficult situations where we feel quite trapped. Do you know what I mean? And we feel like it's a sort almost like a foregone conclusion. Actually, we are always the curator of our life, like always, on every level. We are, do you know what I mean? We're guiding it through our intention and attention. So everyone that's watching this is an amazing sort of download for us all. But I really think you could apply it in your situation, Richard, and just visualize the judge just saying, "I really see that you are a good man. I really, really see that you are a good father. I see that you are a good person." And whatever it is that you want him to say, and see and visualize yourself coming, like being part of that conversation. "Thank you for seeing me." And bringing up that emotion from being seen. Do you know what I mean? Like he really sees you for the angelic being that you are. And yeah, I would definitely do that.
But whatever happens on Friday, I'll face that, and then we'll obviously I'll either come back and I'll be seeing everyone from there, and I'll start my journey. If not, and they do lock me up, then I'll face that and deal with that. And either way, I'll make sure I turn as many inmates as I can into educated, awakened people. So that's what I'll do with that time. Let's talk about let's talk about the coming times, because obviously there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
a lot going on, isn't there, at the moment? There's a lot of things pumped out from the mainstreams. So, it looks and sounds like there's going to be a few wars coming. At the same time, people like us are trying to separate from them sort of fears being pumped out, even though thing might happen. So how do you sit with all that sort of stuff at the moment? What's happening in the world? I mean, how do you feel about that?
We're already in the spiritual war. Like, this is it. It's not coming. It's like we're already in it. Do you know what I mean? I don't see it as anything necessarily coming. I see it as though like we're in it right now, and it's the battle between the old world and the new world, and this is playing out in relationships in real time, here and now. You've got people that are very attached to the patriarchal established ways, that they don't want to open the space for the divine feminine. But this age is about the return of the divine feminine in men and women, and it is, and it's connected to the whole, the zero and the one. It's all deeply connected. It's like the soul consciousness is we all come from the soul consciousness. We all come from the divine feminine, but she has been deeply denied, ignored, abused, suppressed, repressed. And that is why we're in this sort of like vibrational frequency that we're in. So I don't see the war necessarily as an external thing. I see it as an on the ground thing that's happening every day in our relationships, especially in spiritual communities, where this old energy is getting turned up a notch. That's what I'm noticing. And a lot of this old energy is reliant on the weakness and the ignorance of humanity, and humanity's inability to speak up against abuse and stuff like that. So that's how I see the war. Like, I see the patriarchal energy is very, very abusive and controlling towards the divine feminine that exists in men and women.
Yeah.
And so we have to be brave now, like what we said at the beginning of the show. It's like every community must have angelic troublemakers. We must be prepared to have these conversations with these patriarchal abusive beings. Do you know what I mean? And say, no, you no, like, step back now. You do not have the authority. Like, you need to govern yourself. Like, we're not here to lead others, we're here to lead ourselves. We're here to lead ourselves home, back to nirvana, back to nirvanic consciousness within our own self. That's the only people we're here to lead. But then when you become a leader, you become an inspiration, you become a role model, because we've trailblazed that path. I'm not here to lead anyone else other than myself. But that is what the old people believe. They think that they're leaders, and they think that they have the right to go in there and say, oh, you shouldn't have said that, and you shouldn't say that. The way you're showing up on social media is inappropriate. They think they have the right to go in there and like pull people's strings, and they're deluded leaders. So this is where I see the spiritual war, Richard. I see it in real time happening on the streets right now in our world, and the patriarchal energy is winning if we don't speak up.
Yeah.
If we don't speak up and say, no, that's toxic, that's poisonous, that is not loving, I feel off, I feel off right now. And if we stop gaslighting ourselves, we have a chance to win this spiritual battle. But it requires bravery, profound bravery from everyone now, because the divine feminine is very soft, she's very quiet, whereas this patriarchal energy is very loud, very shouty, very, very, very dominant. And so we somehow have to find our voice now. But I don't watch the news. I find the news is abusive, and the whole agenda of the news is abusive. It's there to conjure up fear energy, and so I would never ever watch the news. So I literally don't really have a clue. I sometimes have a little momentary glance over the in the supermarket. I have a look at the headlines, but that is about as far as it goes, and that's probably about once a month, maybe once every 2 months. So I don't really know what's going on. Like when I hear about things on social media, and generally I'll hear about like a false flag or something like that, and everyone's going, oh, well, this really happened, and I'm like thinking, no, it didn't, and I'll just like go and do like 5 minutes worth of research with my go-to researchers, and I'll be like, oh, well, that's a false flag, and it would be so obvious, and everyone's like losing their shit about something that's just been like announced. But so I always have a different angle. Always, and I think for myself, back to that original question that you asked me about, like, who am I and what am I doing here, sort of thing. It was like that I had a very powerful spiritual awakening when I was 21, and on top of Mount Kailash in India, and I'm now 49. It was my birthday a few days ago, so I've been very, very like in an awakened state of consciousness for a very, very long time, for like 28 years or whatever, and so in that moment, when on top of the mountain, what happened to me was I was chanting the mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And all of a sudden I got to the top of the mountain, and my third eye just completely blasted open. And I saw this big, big, massive white light. And I knew that light was God, because I'd had rejected the word God, because my Catholic religion had imposed this idea upon me that God was a patriarchal man with a grey beard in the sky. And I was like, no. I used to always like get kicked out of my RE lessons, because I was like, no, I'm sure Jesus didn't say that. I'm sure he didn't say that either. And so I always deeply rejected the word God. But in that moment, when I saw that white light, I knew that was God. And I knew that God is another word for love. And love is the universal force of creation. And that our souls were born from deep divine love. Our souls will return home to deep divine love. And now, whilst we're in these vessels, our job is to be anchored in godly divine love. And so I understood in that moment the sacredness of every aspect of creation. I was shown that every blade of grass is assigned a guardian angel. God loves creation so much that every aspect of creation is guarded over, even a blade of grass. And so imagine if God assigns a blade of grass a guardian angel. Imagine how many angels are assigned to you. Do you know what I mean? And so I really deeply awoke to the sacredness of all of creation. And in this experience, I awokened to the Christ being that I am. And how I awoken to that was through recognizing it in my brother Dean, who's from Bromsgrove. We have this Bromsgrove connection. But God sent me my true deep spiritual brothers, which were Dean and Darren Cox from Bromsgrove. And I had a very, very powerful contract with Dean that he would trigger
I live in Bromsgrove as well, so
that Dean would trigger my Kundalini awakening. And in that moment when I had my Kundalini awakening, I looked at Dean and I saw the Christ being in him. I just saw it. And then I was like, whoa, oh my God, I can see the Christ in him. Shit, man. And then I was like, well, if I can see it in him, it's a mirror of me. I must be that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to see that. And then I was like, oh my God, every single one of my brothers and sisters is really the Christ. And I had like this full Christ consciousness awakening. And so everyone that I meet, I see the Christ in you. You might not see it, you might not know it, you might not have exalted your own consciousness to that level, but I see that in you. And how I really see it is like, it's the part of us that is so, it's always around this area. I notice it. And if you really look deeply around this area of someone's eyes, you will see an exhaustion. You will see like a battering. Like, being part of this matrix is very battering for the soul, but we're so brave. The fact that we all came back to this crazy realm, and so you see this brilliance, but you see this exhaustion, you see this vulnerability, but yet you see this like utter kind of like power and resilience. And that is how I connect with the Christ being in every single one of my brothers and sisters, whether they are aware of it or not. And so, and this brings me on to talk about, like, I'm talking a lot about the elders, because there's all these fake elders. People who wear a few feathers in their hair, they've got wrinkles on their skin. Like, oh yeah, she can open the ceremony in my festival. And she is completely lost it on a spiritual level, you know? And yeah, I've been talking about that quite a lot in my videos recently, about what does it mean to be a true elder. A true elder understands the sacredness of all of creation. A true elder understands how precious you are. All these fake elders, they don't give a shit about you. They care about your money. That's all they care about. They care that you're going to sign up for their ceremony, so they can tell their other fake shaman friends, oh yeah, I had 100 people sign up for my ceremony, and she can say, I had 150 people sign up for her ceremony. I'm more of a shaman than you. Bullshit. So this is where the spiritual war is going on right now in festivals. Like, festivals are the battleground. Do you know what I mean? I went to loads of festivals this year. And
Glastonbury, about your download at Glastonbury recently.
Which download? I've had so many. Which one?
So it says here, Sally Ann's put, could you please share some information about your download at Glastonbury?
Which one though? I can't remember which one you mean, Sally. Which one do you mean? The one from years ago? The one from recently?
Recently, a download.
What was it about?
Maybe
so many
on your finger, something. Yeah.
If
I tell you what I'd like to talk about as well is the word balance. So obviously there's different ways of looking at the word. We've got balance within ourselves, balance within the brain. Because if we balance the brain, then we get a divineness from that, or otherwise known as Solomon's Temple or Hiram Abiff. But balance of the world, the polarity. Now, we understand, everyone who might watch this will also understand, for good and bad has to almost walk side by side. But the world is so unbalanced at the moment, and that's why people are so unbalanced. And that's because those that kind of run the world are really pushing the darkness a bit more harder than what we see as good things happening. And especially when you get stuck into it, that's all you'll absorb every day. I did that for a while. I just looked at the world, I was giving up hope because I thought there is no good left. Fair enough, we find it amongst ourselves and with other people. But what I realised was, when I understand the balance, is that the scale of it goes far either side. So there's really bad things happening. And let's just say, if we look at it from a money point of view, there's people with absolutely nothing on this earth, and it's a shame. Then there's people with too much money that they couldn't spend in a lifetime. So the balance is far out. And that's why everything needs to be brought back into a better, more of an equal balance. Which, fair enough, as I say, from a spiritual point of view or not, there does have to be almost light and dark walk side by side. It has to be. You can't have one without the other. So if we have to believe that, then fair enough, we have to understand that at the moment on the earth, the balancing is so far out. That's why there is so much darkness up on the earth and what's going through, people are going through. And I know that we can only find the goodness amongst our sort of communities and stuff at the moment, which is what I'm doing, you know. I struggle to find it anywhere else. But what's your opinion on that sort of thing, Jen?
Mm. So it reminds me of when Elizabeth passed, or when her passing was announced. I hosted the 9/9 transmission. I host all these global ceremonies, and the next one I'll talk about that after, about the 10/10. But it was the night of the 9/9 transmission, and I was about to go to sleep, and then all of a sudden it had this really weird moment where she started talking through me, and I was like, "Well, I'm really not your greatest fan. Like, what is going on?" And she started saying, and she started bringing through this message to me, and what she was saying was that, well, she said that she passed over about 2.5, 3 years ago, and this was just announced then. But she said that basically she paid her karmic dues for the crimes against humanity that she was complicit in. And she said, but you have to know that there were higher forces way above me that were pulling my strings, and I had no choice but to play out that role that I played out. And she said, in the great grand scheme of things, we as a collective consciousness chose to place this fake monarchy in their position. And this is what she explained to me. She said, we all chose that at the time of Atlantis because this was the deepest inversion of darkness that you could possibly have, or the deepest inversion of light that you could have. This was, it created such a darkness in humanity's consciousness to have this false monarchy where all of it, sovereignty and spiritual power, were given to this family. But she said what it did was it accelerated the timeline of the event, the solar flash event, because it brought the darkness exponentially quicker. She said it could have played out a lot longer where there wasn't any monarchy, but in order for us to sort of like experience this transformation, there has to be like a balance of darkness and light. And so that role was played out to very quickly take humanity's consciousness to the point of extreme darkness. It's like an elastic band that can only get pulled back so far, and then once it goes back so far, it has to spring back. So their role, the role of the fake, it was like a fake monarch timeline, if you like. And she explained to me that the role was to actually accelerate the ascension, because it created a false ascension timeline. Do you know what I mean? Like no one's ascending on that false monarchy timeline, and so it's an inversion of the truth. But we've all got to see like what an inversion it is, and like how wrong it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so wrong, like, to have that's woke so many people up to and ultimately she was like saying, you know, it carried such a darkness, the monarchy did, that it just can't get any darker. So once you've reached that extreme point of darkness, it's just like you're back to the light. So that, I hope that explains how the balancing thing works out. And my friend David Ash used to always say that. I have this really amazing physicist friend called David Ash that's written a load of books and does, like, you know, videos and stuff. And he always says, oh, you know, even though the darkness is very, very difficult, I can't remember how he exactly says it. He says, but the thing is that the more darkness, the quicker we'll go to the light, because that is how polarity works. If it was very diluted, the darkness, it would be really, really stretched out. Do you know what I mean?
It ties in a little bit with anthroposophy. So one of the studies I do is anthroposophy, and it talks about the timeline we're in is the fifth epoch, shifting into the sixth epoch, which most people would know is going into Aquarius. And this is the sixth epoch is before the seventh, and the seventh is the Atlantean epoch. So again, that's showing us that we've got the Kali Yuga cycle, and it's a 24,000 year process. We hit the bottom of the pit and we go back up again, and hit the bottom and come back down again. And that's kind of the cycles we go through. But we had to go through the fifth epoch, which is basically the ego or the I epoch that we've lived in for the last however long. Couple of thousand years, I believe it is, which is why it kind of ties in with this timeline of Pisces and whatnot that we've gone through. But anyway, it talks
Can
about.
I ask oh, sorry, go on. Have you studied much about Tartaria?
Yeah, I've seen a lot about that. Yeah.
I'm fascinated with Tartaria. I mean, have you got anything to share about that?
I've put some videos together about it over the time as well. So I've done quite a lot. I did a lot of video making, Jen, and obviously a lot of things would get removed. So you put a lot of effort into stuff and they get removed. It gets quite painful, and I suppose that's why I slowed down, especially this year. But with Tartaria, you've got to understand we're looking at a time again. It's not really written in the curriculum correctly. So we're fully aware there's lots of things that came before our time, which it gets called mythological. And, that's what they kind of make out to be. The Tartarian Empire, we're dealing with the master magi's, the magicians of the earth, and their capabilities was what led to their fall, if you want. Just like the fall of Atlantis. But again, that can be debated now. With the fall of Atlantis was just to do with actually the timeline itself. Something happened on the Earth. It could have been a big flash, like we say.
Yeah.
In the Younger Dryas period, which we now recognise as where a comet hit the northern hemisphere and all the ice caps melted and sea levels rose. So between England, basically, the very important thing people to know about is that where we are in England, you've got England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. And below us, we've got Europe, Canary Islands, and stuff like that. You come across to the west, we've got America. Well, between us is the Atlantic Ocean, Atlantis. So we move water, and then we have the land again. So England and Ireland would be joined together. Big hills. And these Atlantean tribes, when they had to survive the flood, which is like the equivalent of Noah, they had to go to the highest part of the mountains, of course. So they're meant to have been 13 tribes or 12 tribes, allegedly, that survived it. They had to then go around the earth and replenish the earth and, start it off again. At that point, it would have been good intentions. And this goes back for 12,000 years. But what happened was, in the curriculum that we're given on the earth, if you typed in the cradle of civilization, where did cradle of civilization begin? It tells you in the Middle East, Iraq, Iran, Mesopotamia, Babylonia, as we now know. That system there is some of the tribes that came down to the south, the dog-headed tribes. They were the ones that turned against their brother tribes, brother and sister tribes if you want, and became dirty-minded. They wanted to have their creation, the slave races on this earth, and have this hierarchy system, where some of the northern tribes that were trying to replenish the earth, they were also trying to do good things. And that's where these battles began amongst the tribes themselves, thousands of years ago. In fact, a few thousand years before what the curriculum tells us was the cradle of civilization. So all of these things have always been there about, information about Tartarian Empire and all that. You don't have to go far anywhere on this earth to see something happened. So for me, ancient architect, churches, cathedrals all around the planet, most of these cities that have buildings that can't be done with today's technology ties in with the Indian Sanskrits that for the last 12,000 years, humanity has gone through a devolution process and we're at the rock bottom. And we're about to rise again now into an evolution process, which ties in with the conscious evolution, ties in, again, a lot of people get confused with Christ. Christ is a title.
Yes, like, a title,
Title. Pope is a title. But Christ itself, as we know, is the consciousness within us.
Yes, conscious,
So like a pack of birds in the sky or a flock of birds, they can fly together without talking. They don't need to make noises to say which way we're going. They'll all know effectively.
Yeah.
Humanity have that too in us, but it's been shut off through the world that surrounded in what's happened to us. So we are living in the worst time the world has ever seen.
Yeah.
And it can ever see. There can never be a worse point on this planet than where we are. We are we're born in a time where if you're born in a situation where every day, something that happens in your life, it's repetitive from a young age, no different. So you can become happy with that happening. Cognitive dissonance, what they call it, and these sort of things. So what's happened is we're born in a world where, okay, we know it's a bit crappy at times, but there is nice things here. We can find paradise, which technically means a slave that finds happiness within a prison. We can
find, no way.
The etymology of it, the root word. So if you look in basically paradise, we just generally would have thought it means a beautiful heavenly place, but no, it means a slave that finds happiness within a prison. So we're born in a time where it's all we know. But if we lived in a collective time of consciousness, Christ consciousness and whatnot, then of course we would never look back at this and say that was a good old time. We'd look back and be like, what a horrific time the earth went through. And that's what it will be looked back on when it finishes. These next few years are very, very vital that we keep pushing and pushing harder and harder to make sure that we keep growing as a collective. Because the second coming of Christ from a biblical point of view or a religious point of view, again, people think that it's to do with a guy appearing in the sky. It's misinterpretations from scriptures that were left by very clever mastermind magi's of the time. And they've left it for their own types to kind of understand it a lot more clearly. And the general masses will never understand it clearly. They read it blindsidedly. The second coming is about the collective consciousness, Christ consciousness, that title again, rather than a man appearing. But a lot of people that are on that page would argue with that because they do expect, Jesus to reappear again. Now, I'm fully aware of all them stories and I studied them for a long time to look into it. But now, understanding it from a spiritual point of view, it really did talk about what's already in here within ourselves, that it would come back again. And everything that's happening to the earth at the moment, the darkest things that are going to happen, not going to leave many people a lot of choice, right? To actually really look at the whole world itself in a different way. And everyone's going to want it to be changed. So that now the masses on the planet are happy. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to listen to these things. They just want to go to work and think that they're back to normal life is going to be safe. Their bubbles are safe. But they're all going to get popped. And it's horrible for me to deliver that information. That's things that are going to happen are not going to be seen by me and you in the same way that they will see it. And this is because we're going through the end of the I epoch. And the I is about the individual, the ego. So the sixth epoch is a spiritual and physical blend on the earth before the pre-Atlantean epoch. And then we have to understand, going back to what we believe as the 1800s or what happened before that on the earth, that was the end of what we would have known as the Tartarian Empire on the earth. And again, you're talking about the powers that they had messing with technologies, as men they were messing with technologies which could have been vibration, sound technologies, which would have created great floods and certain things could have happened. And this has always been there. And because we were going to the back end of the devolution, that's why these things happened back then. So in the 1800s, you had the great perversion of truth, which in religion terms is known as the Battle of Michael and the Dragon. So that's from 1840 to 1870s, generally that great reset that happened on the earth, otherwise in curriculum called the Renaissance. During that time there is where they reset the planet ready for this final revelations days that we're living in. And that's why we've gone from 1900 or 1903, the youngest ever emperor to ever have lived on the planet at 5 years old. What can he make a decision for the whole of Asia? He can't. He's too young to make decisions to understand anything. But those who are in control had to make that happen so they could roll out the darkness then. Then we have things like the Titanic, deliberately to wipe out a few other powers that might have had good hearts. It was a chessboard game at the time. And we've gone through World War after World War, all the famines and diseases, especially the ones that are created by man. And if we look at what's really happened, it is the revelation play out, otherwise known as the end of day prophecies. And we are at the very back end of it. So that's why from 2020 to 2030, the governments knew this. The magicians worldwide that are part of the secret societies knew this. And the general masses, we're all trying to figure it out. And it has to be done. And fair enough, maybe the numbers on the earth, the depop from point of view, has to be done from their point of view. Because if they're going to hijack the next age, and have us as a little conformed slave race forever, then they have to go through that. But at the same time, from a blessing point of view, that we get to see what's happening, we do it from a different point of view. We look at the earth and we know it's not right. We know it can't stay like this forever. It has to change. For us to be a collective again, yes, we can separate ourselves from this society that we are seeing in the world that we were once part of, but it doesn't fade away. And that's why I think it is a very important time that people do understand that the history that came before us, or the ancient civilizations, the pre-times, hold all the answers for what's happening where we are now. And the technologies that we use to build half of this planet was hidden from us, and then we were brought things back out like electricity and these other things, apart from they put it through cables so they can charge us for it, because it's all part of this great perversion of truth. And that means in 1840 to 1870, which was the Battle of Michael and the Dragon, there was a spiritual and physical battle on the earth. People were spiritual back then. They weren't religious. They were spiritual. And that's why they had to do this massive reset on the earth, make out that religions are a thing and spirituality had to be eradicated from the earth. So the greats of the times that have lived between then and now, people like Rudolf Steiner or the Fox sisters, Helen Blavatsky, all these people that went around the earth, traveled it, and understood what was really happening as a being and a physical body and the difference between the two, they had to be eradicated. Everything had to be eradicated from the earth. So that these Arimen elites, call them monsters, to say, they had their final end of day play, which is basically known as the Antichrist on the earth and his final reign before the next great age, which will come. And obviously, hopefully, a lot of us will be there to see it.
So, have you done much research around how some of these exceptional cathedrals were built?
Yes. And
like say for example Notre Dame or any, like, have you ever seen Wells Cathedral? Oh my god, Wells Cathedral has got to be the most spectacular cathedral I've ever seen in my life. And I said to my mum, like, bless my mum, I was like, Mum, do you really think that they built that without electricity? She was like, yes, Jen, of course they could do all sorts of things without electricity. And I was like, no, it's about like up to the sky. But so now we've, because my understanding is that they were not places of religious worship in the moment, like when they were created. They were created as for many reasons. They were created as a mirror of heaven on earth, as a way to mirror the exalted nature of heaven. So they made all these amazing buildings that were very, very, very heavenly, to mirror the beauty and exquisite nature of the heavenly realms. I believe that they were built as generators to store the electricity. A lot of them are red brick, which we know stores electricity because I think it's the iron or something in the bricks. We also know that the shapes of the stained glass windows and stuff like that are all cymatic shapes in order for the energy to move freely around these cathedrals. So I'm wondering, they must have been built by the master masons at that time, who were privy to very high level spiritual knowledge, I would believe. You know what I mean? Because all the way they did it was just very, very, very deeply advanced. So yeah, what can you add to that, Richard?
So yeah, pretty much a nail on the head. So what it is, there was nothing to do with place of worship.
No.
Never. So for example, some of my videos where I'll go around and you'll see me in Gloucester Cathedral, and one day I went to Gloucester Cathedral, Tewkesbury Cathedral, and Worcester Cathedral. Now, in Gloucester Cathedral, the big pane glass, I asked the lady in there, how old is this glass? And she was one of the historians of the cathedral. And she seen me putting magnets to walls and doing certain testing in there. And she came over and she played a bit of interest and had a good chat. So I asked her how old the glass was. And she said, I can guarantee you it's no younger than 500 years old. But there is a bit of a debate whether it's anything up to 800 years. Now, for example, that one stained glass area, you come down from the top, and as I was doing the video, I was looking at the story, what's being said through the pictures, and you'll find this, what I'll mention in a minute, repetitive in all churches and cathedrals. Come towards the bottom, and the thing that shocked me was, if it's 500 years old, why aren't we told in the curriculum that a humongous wave covers the pyramids and everyone's running from it? Because on that glass, it shows you towards the bottom, if they're 500 years old, it shows you the Great Pyramids and a humongous wave that's bigger than it coming over them, and people are running. I was like, oh, well, that's missing in the curriculum history. But the important part is in regards to how they're built. Now, I know that some of these businesses out there and companies now, they have to go and do work on the odd occasion and repairs to these buildings. And they class that as a master project because of the dangers in it and the unknown with it and what they are allowed to do with today's technology capabilities compared to what they were done back then. But what you'll find repetitive in all these cathedrals, mainly over churches, imagine the cathedral as the master mother battery or the mother frequency energy machine. And all of the churches are to distance it out further. So if you imagine now that this earth we're living on was actually a vibration frequency of light and billions of it, these were what would have amplified them to become a solid, if you want, from a different angle of looking at that. But let's just look at what was done. To understand, you have to know a bit more. It's real deep conversations, so I won't go too deep into the actual Elohim and stuff like that. But if we have to understand, you'll always see the saints of the time of each cathedral around the earth holding in somewhere in the building, they'll be holding a small version of it in their hand. And they'll be sat there in a chair. And what will happen is there'll be lots of saints stood around them, in most cases, on these windows and pictures. And what that's representing is the small versions they're looked at. These masters, the magi's of the time, would have been able to manifest these buildings into place. They weren't building scaffolding and doing all that sort of stuff to build them. I promise you that.
Wow.
Because a lot of these things were done overnight, like we find repetitive around the planet. Now, I'm not saying that the whole cathedral disappears by the following morning, but the actual blocks that they use and how they're positioned in place was done out generally of the eyes of the public, even though the masses of the public were aware of the capabilities back then. And these are how they were built. They weren't done how the curriculum tells people today, and they certainly weren't done for what they were told they were used for. So in regards to the big machines within cathedrals, the organs, as they're called, these organ machines and their power output of noises and the vibrations they can do can be used for healing. We know that. But at the same time, you have to imagine them from a real deep understanding point of view that it has a higher, bigger purpose, and that's to reach the other churches, and they all put the same frequencies out, and that can change the brain, what we think, our bodies. It can do all sorts to us at the time. It can make things go from a generally, you'd separate the actual etheric body from the physical body, and these were the capabilities that they can still do. So I had a good chat with that historian in the Gloucester Cathedral, and we went a little bit deeper because I had to act a little bit dumb at first, like I were just asking questions. Then I realised that she was actually ready to play ball, and then we talked about the purpose of the church, of the cathedral, and she said, well, as you know, most people are told it's built in the name of God and this, that, and the other. But she said, yes, it is definitely an energy design building.
Wow.
Free energy, which means there wasn't no such thing as cables from my house to these power plants. You could have light bulbs anywhere. And there's always written history about how this energy that was there is always there above us, the etheric energy. And that's why the tops of churches and cathedrals have these specific designs. It's all in plain sight, we know that. So there has been a lot of amazing documentaries put together about this stuff, and it's coming out a lot more now. But, it's still hard for the general masses to absorb that information and believe it in any way. They much prefer to think that, no, a mosque is a mosque, place of worship always was. And a church is a church, place of worship always was. A temple is no. There was all the exact same thing and same purpose. And the religions came in during the Renaissance. Not to say that they didn't have, people that go in there and it's your connection to God, if they believed in that sort of thing back then. But I wasn't there.
But what about, Richard, though? If you look at those temples in India that are like thousands and thousands of years old, the most intricate temples you can possibly imagine, they seem to have deities like Parvati and Shiva. So I don't know about Hinduism. Was that, I imagine that was been around for quite a long time, Hinduism.
Hinduism's basically the second epoch in this great age we're in. So there's 7 epochs to a great age, and there's 7 great ages. I'm doing it from more of an anthroposophy explanation. If I went into Sanskrits, then you're looking at the Kali Yugas, the Dwapar Yuga, the Arupa Yuga cycles. All of these are explaining the differences. So the second epoch of this great age we're in, bearing in mind we're in the 5th, shifting to the 6th now, the second epoch was basically the Hindu epoch. And what happened was then, again, a lot of these buildings that have built the temples, like the Aura caves, they hold information, which is why a lot of them are still protected by armies. You can be the best archaeologist on the planet. You ain't getting near it. You're not allowed to pass. And that still stands today. So that is because the answers are too easy to look at. It's in plain sight. It can't be done on this earth today with the technologies we allegedly have. And apparently, again, a lot of these things were done overnight. So the answer's there by looking at them and studying them. And that's why they don't allow people near them. They're protected. India holds more information for these things than anywhere else on the planet.
Yeah.
So people talk about pyramids and they're like, yeah, let's talk about Egypt. Pyramids
Yeah.
in Egypt, right? You want to talk about pyramids, you go to Africa.
Really?
Oh yeah, believe me, Africa's got more pyramids in Africa than anywhere in Egypt.
Wow.
Pyramids, or again the word temple. Okay, we can come across to Mexico and America. It's all across the planet, and they do have, as we know, star correlation purposes. What they represent, things like the Great Pyramids of Egypt, they are to do with Orion's belt and the star system Orion. You go to China, and again, we're talking thousands and thousands of pyramids on a scale that honestly it is irrefutable to be a bit concerning to be ignoring this stuff as where we're meant to be today as a civilization. But pyramids in China represent the Pleiades, so depending on where these things are done, it's to do with the time and the epoch they were in. And that's why we have different root races on the earth today. We are root races. It's just, human species. We've got Africans, we've got the Indians, we've got the Caucasians and whatnot. The different types of people we have on the planet are to do with the epochs that they stem from. So India holds a lot of the very important sacred truths about this planet and where we come from. But again, the curriculum and the times we live in are to take us away from it and say, look over here. You want to go to see some beautiful thing? Go and look at the pyramids of Egypt. They can't hide it, but they protect the ones in India. And apparently the Western white man only discovered these things around 1914 when they were doing, their little crusades around that time as well. But the truth is, they already knew about them. It's only because people that were exploring came across them again, and that's when they were like, the secret societies were like, shit, they found them again, and they couldn't stop it, the information. So that's when they brought out the armies to protect them, not allow people to them. And when I say protect them, it means from both points of view. So they're not destroyed, but also to stop people from going there and looking at it, because it is alien to the time that we're living in. Our brains can't comprehend what's been done or how it's been done, and the wealth that's within some of them, very worrying. That again, it's took from the people, because if it was spread, Indian wouldn't be looked at as a. I don't like to use the words for some of the terminology that we're given from curriculum, but Indian would be a much richer place. Africa would be a much richer place. It was the Western world at the time that kind of, and I say this, it's the greedy, powerful men that had their wealth to have that power, should we say, and their manipulation of a man that make these things happen for a purpose. And we have to understand that happened roughly 500 years ago, which is basically when the Vatican was built. The Vatican was part of this Luciferic elite, or again, monster system. And it was all down for the final ages that they were going through to where we are today, before it starts again, the next cycle. And they're just trying to hijack it, but really they have no way. If people want to believe in God or the cycle itself, they can't stop the change, but they can hijack the general masses and have their little slave system continue into the next age, which is what we've got to stop.
So how do we stop it?
Well, the mark of the beast and the beast system is important to understand as Revelation point of view. So if we look at the World Wide Web, it's adventurous for this now. People can get information, we can pass information and whatnot, but it's controlled by them. The machine that gives us the internet on this planet is called the beast. They called it the beast. Well, that's the beast system that talks about in Revelations. So this whole web system around the earth, the World Wide Web, which in numeric terms comes out of 666 anyway, is this final end of day play. Now, collective consciously wise, we need to understand what the Ark of the Covenant is and what the Holy Grail is and all of this. So right now, if I was on the right frequency, my body and my brain was on the right, say, percentage of usage, and I weren't, poisoned by all the general things that are thrown at us, then right now I could probably have a conversation with you, sat in this room without being near you, and without going through a phone, and I could literally consciously connect with you, have a full bore conversation.
Yeah.
Go and visit places. Now I know this for a fact because going back in 2020, I was doing a lot with these esoteric studies, which is why a lot of times people started saying, he's a Mason, he's a Mason. No, I'm not. I'm not sworn by any oath on this planet. I never will be. I stand free to the bone till I die. But I was infiltrating a lot of them and people that were in these things to get information. I was asked to join certain things because they were saying, if you want to learn, you need to join. No, it weren't that. But what I found out was that when it comes to things like astral projection, these are the things that they do. So, like, for example, the Golden Dawn. That Golden Dawn, people are like, Aleister Crowley, Aleister Crowley. No, again, there's a lot of dark arts tied to it. But again, you'll always have good and bad within everything. So what they're capable of doing is, when I was dealing with them, I would have had to have gone through an initiation in the physical body, where at that point then, I would have had to have signed an oath, and whether that means my tongue gets cut out if I ever talk about the secrets or pass them on, or whether I get killed, I don't know. I never turned up for it. But I had the details with them, and the deal was I had to be there in physical body the first time, and then they understand that everyone lives in different parts of the country, and it's not appropriate for all of us to travel there every week. So then you would then go in projection and have these meetings together, which then indicate to me that they are actually admitting, this high secret society thing was admitting to me that you go there once to do your initiation in physical, and then therefore after that you can be there in the astral projection in consciousness state, and they all do a meeting. It's like, wow. So that's when these things started to really come to my mind. Wow, this is real. These things are actually real. They can do it. And that's what they hold from the general masses. Why do they hide it? Because what was said to me from a high-level master mason when they was a bit concerned about some of the videos I was putting out for free to their people, they started saying to me, do you realise that some of this information given to the wrong people can be very, very dangerous? And at the time, I was like, shouldn't be hidden. But after thinking about it a little bit more, let's just say if I'm believing, like you said to me earlier on at the very start, I need to manifest these thoughts for courts and manifest whatnot. Let's just say if my thoughts could physically or spiritually come real outside now, and if I had a bad thought, then it happens to something or someone, then yes, some of these powers and capabilities of the man, the physical body, can be very dangerous if not used correctly. So that's why when you go through some of these things, or if you was to go through them, it's understanding the difference of ego and removing that completely before you become divine. So therefore, if I sat there and I had these capabilities of magic and being like, I could, grab something from a distance without touching it, and it would come to my hand because I thought it to do that, I made it do that through thought. Well, understandably, you've got to look at it. It could go terribly wrong if someone's putting out the wrong thoughts. So they have to understand that if someone was to sit there and they'd be like, I could do this, and then someone else would be like, go on then, they'd want to see it, and then you'd be like, okay, I'll show you. Well, that's ego showing you. The truth is, with that power, you wouldn't want anyone to know. You'd always keep it sacred and hidden and only pass it on to those who are ready. But it is a very confusing time we're living in with all these things happening. So
definitely. Yeah, that's really, really great, Richard. Is there anything you want to ask me? I've got a feeling that people might want to hear a little spiel from me.
yeah.
Anything that you'd like to ask?
So in regards to, I think we finished up on myself then about astral projections and stuff. So what about yourself? What's your opinions on the astral projections? Do you do that and meditation again? Because I've never really been big on the meditation side. But how about?
I don't really do astral projection. My teachings, I've written some really amazing books, and one of them is called Twin Flames in the Event. And in it, I talk a lot about telepathy and about how we're all masters, we're all adept at telepathy because it's our natural way of communicating, but because it's just a heart-based communication. And so basically, like, we all have the ability to do that, but the mind, the left brain is so strong that you'll connect with someone on a spiritual, on like telepathic level, and then your mind will be like, oh no, I just made that up. I made that up. Do you know what I mean, Richard?
Yeah.
And so basically, it's something that is just very, very innately in us. Like, we all have the power to communicate like telepathically. So that's what I've got to say about astral projection. I haven't really thought much about astral projection, but I know that we communicate on a telepathic level with each other. Meditation, I advocate a path of meditation, but really my true sort of like path that I advocate is anchoring in the present moment consciousness and finding a practice that will enable you to be fully grounded and anchored in the present moment, because that is the seat of spiritual mastery, is present moment consciousness. And this is how we access the 0 point field of consciousness, is where all timelines merge. They all merge in the present moment. And so our job on a spiritual level is to anchor and orientate our consciousness in the present moment, and it's also to be empty. Like, all instruments are empty. A flute is hollow, a guitar is hollow, a drum is hollow. Why is that? So that they can receive the grace of the divine. If a flute is like stuffed with all, like, you know, cotton wool, you won't be able to play that flute properly. It has to be empty so that the spirit can have, you know, unencumbered access to move through. It's the same with us. We must be empty. We must find practices that will enable us to become spiritually empty, so that we can become the instruments that God, you know, intended for us to be. And being empty means having a practice where you're no longer identified with your egoic consciousness. And so just finding a practice whereby you can become the observer. Like, you can't ever get rid of your thoughts, just like the sky can't get rid of the clouds, because the clouds are just a natural innate part of the sky, just like our thoughts are an innate part of our consciousness. But our consciousness really is like the pristine blue sky. It's eternal, it's vast, it's silent, it's all encompassing, it's welcoming to all. And our thoughts are like these clouds. But what happens is we have these thoughts. Oh, I feel depressed. I feel that person said this to me, or whatever. And we believe our thoughts and we identify with our thoughts. And in that moment, we forget that we are the vast, infinite space in which all appearances are allowed to rise and fall. And so really the path of spiritual mastery is to become the observer of your egoic mind. You'll never get rid of your thoughts, but you can certainly not believe them. You can certainly reach a level where you're not invested in them, where you can just simply, like, it's like a TV screen. It's like, there's that thought passing by, there's that thought passing by, and you remain present. You remain with your consciousness grounded and anchored in the present moment. This is the fastest track to enlightenment. This is the fastest track to spiritual nirvana. And it's to get the mind out of the way, because the mind does not know how to take you to the fifth dimension, Christ consciousness. If the mind knew how to do that, we would have a planet of enlightened beings, but we don't. And so we have to find practices that will enable us to simply become the observer of our mind, and become very, very masterful around that, and practices that enable us to be empty. And that's what I've been really, really deeply focused on. And that's why I host these global ceremonies. Every month I host these global ceremonies, and they're transmissions, they're like global meditations. And what I say to everyone, it's like going to the spiritual gym, because I'm like a spiritual heavyweight because of everything that I've been through. You're like a spiritual heavyweight as well. It's like I've had so much training. And so when people come to work closely with me, I'm like a coach. I'm like training you to become a spiritual heavyweight. That is my work. And so what does it mean to be a spiritual heavyweight? It means that you are a master surfer and you stay on the board. No matter what shit life throws at you, you don't fall off the board. You don't collapse into doubt. You don't collapse into being a victim. You don't collapse into identification. You're able to just ride the waves of this world masterfully. That's what it means to be a spiritual heavyweight. It means that you are no longer sourcing your sense of I'm not here for anyone's approval. I couldn't give a shit if 8 billion people on the planet said to me it's that way, and my spirit said to go that way, I would go that way. Do you know what I mean? I will not be told. I follow my own intuition, and that is the only thing that I'll follow. And that's what it means to be a spiritual heavyweight. You give up the need for other people's approval. I am here to please God. I am here to please the God flame that resides within me, that resides in all. I'm not here to please your 3D personality. I'm not. That's not what I've signed up for. But it's a big thing for a human being to reach this level of freedom within themselves. And this is why I host this work. So my next transmission is the 1010 transmission. And I'd love to invite you to come as my guest, Richard. I think you'd really, really love the whole sort of like experience. So in the 1010 transmission, we're going to be working to ground the age of innocence. This is all connected to the golden age. And so in this transmission, we're going to be working with our sacred sexuality. We're going to be working to establish the innocence codes within our sacred sexuality. This is the most heavily targeted aspect of our consciousness or our being, is our sexuality. So many deep inversions have been activated within that, and that is keeping the planet tethered to the fourth dimensional, sort of like it's stopping it from going into the fifth dimension. Because in order for us to really go into the 5D, we have to claim our innocence. We have to remember who we truly are as children of the divine. So many aspects to the 1010 transmission. We're going to be enacting the event. It's a global ceremony. Loads and loads of people are going to be live. And so we're going to all hold that vision of the solar flash event so that we can all experiencing it, and also put those codes into our subconscious minds to like crack on with it. Do you know what I mean? Because really, this is what this is all moving towards. We're moving towards this Samvartika, this solar flash event. So I'll post all the links for you to book onto the ceremony. It's going to take place on the 1010, and yeah, it's an opportunity for you to really harness your spiritual powers, and for you to be part of an absolutely amazing community of spiritual warriors. You know, I've been doing this for like 7 years now, and I've hosted hundreds and hundreds of global ceremonies, and so we're all part of the ground crew, and it's like we're working with our galactic brothers and sisters to bring in this new earth, you know. But they have certain like technologies and stuff, like Arcturian technology. We will often work with Arcturian technology. We will work with Pleiadian technology, because we are the ground crew. We are awakened humanity, and we are working with our galactic brothers and sisters to fully ground and anchor this new earth. This is why we're all here. Otherwise we'd be like living it up on some other star system somewhere. But we are on a really big mission, and that is to fully ground and anchor heaven on earth. So just wanted to let everyone know about that, Richard.
Absolutely. Honestly, Jen, what you were just saying, all that stuff you just said, now I like to think of myself having known a thing or two, but listening to how you explained about observing, being the own thoughts and whatnot, and being the screen, I absolutely loved all of that, because that really sunk in very well with me. So I understood exactly where you're coming from, and I do think that's a very important part of the way you explained it. And again,
yeah, that's great.
Honestly, it's beautiful, like, and I think a lot of people would relate to how you said that, because to become a master of your own self, then yeah, you've got to understand that you can almost step out of that and observe what's really happening, and these thoughts that are coming in. Sometimes we have to question, where are these thoughts coming from? Is it really just part of, you know? It's a very strange thing, isn't it? But I do love it.
No, we just got to be the observer. Just need to be the observer of our mind. It's like the sky can't get rid of the clouds. The sky wouldn't want to get rid of the clouds. It'd be so boring. But the sky doesn't identify with the clouds. The sky always knows it's the host. It doesn't identify with that which is temporary. And clouds and thoughts are just simply temporary. But we have to keep our focus on that which is eternal. And that is the blue sky consciousness. That is the empty space with which all thoughts rise and fall. We have to keep our attention there, and that is the fast track to spiritual liberation, spiritual enlightenment.
Perfect. And a lot of for those out there as well that, you know, this might be newish to you, there's a lot of could be films, books, stories, and there's a lot of things that will talk about enlightenment or reaching that level of Godhead, Christ consciousness, and it's hidden within stories and films and messages, and has been for a very long time, like the Philosopher's Stones and all these sort of things. It's all symbolic for a journey to find oneself. And again, a little thing that a lot of people I've learned a lot about in the last, especially the last couple of years. I think the whole earth has never had so many people so quickly awaken to these things. But the chakras, and most people, even myself, I was walking around on base chakra. I didn't know how to use my heart. I didn't, all these things are like that. And it's raising ourselves through, as I say, essentially going up through the chakras, if you want, into your higher self. And we descend, I suppose, when we first put on this earth, and we go through what this world offers us, and it's took away from us from a very, very young age, our capabilities, and what we're really supposed to be. And I think that's really been done, especially during this evil, dark time we've been born into. But,
Yeah.
go on, Jen,
I just want to say one thing as well. Like, I did this post yesterday about how like smear tests are part of the pharmaceutical agenda, and I want to just put this out there because a lot of people are asking me to explain why. So when you have a smear test, for example, and I'm not saying don't ever have a smear test. I'm not an extremist person. I'm just saying let's just look at this modality. So when you have a smear test, it's the most like proper like violation, invasive thing that you can ever experience. And what happens is that when stuff like this happens, it connects with our root chakra, and our root chakra is our seat of safety in the world. You cannot ascend if you don't feel safe. And so this is a targeted agenda. There are many ways to test the cells within a vagina. Do you know what I mean? You don't need to have this barbaric 1950s big massive silver thing that you put inside of you and then you crank open. That's what you do. Men don't know, but it is absolutely shockingly violating what happens when they give women smear tests. And so I want to just put this out there to let people know like why this is so damaging, because what it does, it gets in with your root chakra and it puts information into your root chakra that you are not safe in this world, and that you don't belong, and you're not going to go anywhere because you're going to spend your whole life in survival mode. If your root chakra has not like sorted itself out, you are not going to get on your ascension path. And so many women are going to these procedures over and over again, and it's just re-traumatizing their root chakra. And people have to understand that this is part of an agenda. There's an agenda to stop the ascension, and it is masked as we're just trying to help you, we're just trying to save you. When you hear those words, really deeply look at the agenda, because everyone's been hoodwinked. We've all been hoodwinked about absolutely everything in our lives. And so I'm just planting this seed into all our listeners to start questioning these so-called normal procedures, because what they're doing is they're normalizing rape. They're normalizing violation. That's what they're doing. They know it's okay for a woman to have this massive thing. Do you know what I mean?
that thing they were getting people to do up their noses.
Exactly, that's another rape. It's like, if you can break the orifices of humanity, that's a way to disempower them. If you break the membranes, if you break do you know what I mean, by going into any orifice. And this is a very dark agenda. This is a deep satanic agenda. Sorry to use that word, but it is. And we all have to know about that. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, and it's darkness out there, and that's why I think, if we can all keep connecting out there, bringing our, as I'd call it, love and light, as people say, but bringing our knowledge and information to others, we are going to help in those. But I've got a feeling, our purpose that's being played out, we're all finding our purpose, and it's a very, very important time. The world needs us now more than ever. The innocent children on this planet need us now more than ever. And those who have this master reach through BBCs and NBCs and whatever they're called, all these, the mainstream medias, they're the ones that are reaching the masses with their evil sorcery. And it's down to us to keep trying to pump out and do our bit to try and bring out the real truth, I suppose, to try and slow this evil pain down that's happening. So
Richard, I'm sure that many people in my community are going to be wondering how they can connect with you. Like, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
I mean, at the moment, it's just through my Facebook platform, because I didn't really. I mean, I didn't really.
That's fine. No, Facebook's fine. That's the same with me. Mine's through my Facebook.
Yeah, and that's it really. So I constantly put videos on there, and I am.
You share amazing content on your Facebook. I would highly recommend that everyone follows you.
No, thank you very much, Jen. Same for yourself. And it is just a case of, I'm growing and learning. And I think one of the things I realised quite early on in 2020 was that to be wise or to have wisdom, you should seek nothing else other than wisdom. And knowledge can only be gained by accepting that we know nothing in every case. And then you'll always look at every information, like the things you've said today, I'll absorb and I'll watch over again. And it's like, learn, learn, learn. Never reject anything. Even if the information you might not agree with in some cases, let it come in, listen to it, and it's how you digest it that matters. You don't have to use it or ever, let it come out again. But that's what it's down to. But the channel I'll be building at some point, depending on what happens on Friday. If I come back home on Friday, we're doing it very quickly. That will be all, many subjects will be added, but it's going to get deeper some stuff, and we are going to really start to bring information to people that really will help with, let's just say, alone, awakening or ascensions and whatnot, and finding their true selves and stepping out of the matrix, as we could call it from another terminology, that has been built on this planet, which is a mastermind's game. And it is, I understand, I do feel sorry for the general masses, because they look at us sometimes and they are programmed to look at people like us and think crazy, hippies and the words that they give us. And it's not. We've got the soul. We're aware of the soul and the spirit and the heart. And we are, some people class it as, I don't know, but I remember how I would look at it myself a few years ago compared to what I do now. So we're very important time that for us to keep on doing what we're doing. And I'll make sure I'll keep pushing harder and harder. I just had a bit of a setback this year, so I'm ready for my rebirth after the court thing if I come home. And that's it, all day, every day. This is my new way of life. Keep bringing what I can to the table.
So. I think we've had a really, really great alchemy and really great sort of like sharing of our wisdoms. And I'd love us to, to do it regularly, like once a month if we can. And I'm really holding that vision for you to have your freedom. And I'm going to be really praying for you and inviting everyone to really hold that vision and hold that knowing that God is looking after you, and, and you are going to experience whatever it is for your highest good. Do you know what I mean? It is absolutely going to be that.
Like I say, we've not planned nothing. There's nothing scheduled. We've got nothing to feed off. We've literally just thrown back at each other a bit of a conversation today. And I think the next one, we can actually put a few things together so we know that we both a week or two into stuff and then bring it to the table and make it a bit more structured for people. It'd be beautiful. So I really enjoyed speaking to you today, Jen. Honestly, so much love for that.
And I just want to say one more thing before we go. Now, I don't know, Richard, if you know anyone that has eczema, but I had this... Your son?
My son has horrific eczema.
Oh my God, I keep getting this downloads. I have to say this thing. So basically, I've never had eczema in my life, but I manifested a really, really severe flare up on my hands. And I had 75 blisters on my hand. My hand was completely itchy. I literally couldn't handle it. And I was at a festival. Just give me your attention now, Richard. I really want to tell you something really amazing. But basically, I was at a festival and I manifested a miracle. I said, God, I really can't handle this level of pain on my hands. And then I just started crying and I was saying, thank you, God for this miracle. Thank you, God, for this miracle. I went to sleep that night. The next morning, I was guided to go to a healer, and he had this chi machine, and he took one look at my hand and he said, I've got the miracle oil that will heal you. And I was like, really? He's like, yes. He put it on my hand. My hand had been itching for 3 weeks. And every time I touched my hand, a new blister would pop up. I was absolutely in the shit. And he put this oil on my hand, and then all of the itching completely and utterly went. Within 5 minutes, all the itching went. Within 24 hours, my hand was healed. My hand was healed.
Nice.
It's absolutely... So I basically got this oil from this guy, and it has been helping so many people. And I just feel like now, because people use steroids, they use cortisol, they use all these horrific things that cause so much poison in our body, when of course Mother Nature has made a perfect like medicine for eczema. Do you know what I mean? So I have it. I have a few bottles left, and I'm happy to send you a bottle for free, Richard, just as my brother. Yeah.
Lots of amazing people helped and sent us some stuff and whatnot. We tried different things with him, but he still has it today.
I'm going to send you a bottle. He'll
scratch himself till he bleeds. And he doesn't
want to... little baby.
As a parent, to watch a child suffer in these ways.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so I really appreciate trying it.
Yeah, no, I'm going to send you a bottle. And so if anyone knows anyone, like, it literally, you wouldn't know now. It did take a while because it was such a severe that there was still a little bit of red, but there's literally no red now. Oh gosh, where is it? But my hands are completely clear. I thought to myself, oh my God, I'm never going to have, like, I'm always going to have like manky hands. Do you know what I mean? I'm always going to, because I couldn't heal it. I tried everything. I tried aloe vera. I tried everything that they recommend. Nothing, absolutely nothing helped. So, but I'm so glad that it's called Amazon Miracle Oil, and I don't know it's got a Latin name. I'll find it. But yeah, so basically I think what we'll do, Richard, I'll send you the links to,
Yeah.
so I would like, the best way for people to follow me is through my group, the Event is Happening group. It's a really amazing group of souls. Like, I highly recommend that you come and join that group. So what I'll do, I'll send you the link to join the group, and I'll send you the link to get the oil, and I'll also give you the link for the 1010 transmission. And then you send me your address, and you send me your information for when I upload it to my communities.
That's it. Yeah, so it's nice and straightforward. We'll swap some links over. We'll add it onto the top so they're all there as well. And then thank you everyone for your lovely comments today. And I've actually
Thank you everyone. It's been lovely. Yeah, it's been amazing. I've really loved it.
And we'll be back again soon, hopefully. So
we will, definitely. We'll be back.
Much love to you all. Cheers, John. See you later. Bye-bye.
See you later.